But the camera there. It's Thursday. It's Thursday afternoon, a little bit later than what I was anticipating. But again, it's another kind of semi lunch and learn kind of a session coming every Thursday across all of our platforms to help you to get your people right, to get the elements of your business surrounding your people in your business correct. Because the ultimate goal here is that we know that the people are the difference makers. It's the people in your business that are going to make the difference to your business, whether that's success or whether that's failure. It's the people in your business that are going to lead you down that direction, that path. So we're here ultimately to help increase productivity and profitability of your business through your people. So that's why it's so critical. And today, one of the things I really want to talk about is looking at the 5 of the biggest mistakes in managing the performance of your staff. So managing staff performance is the focus that we're looking at. It's the 5 biggest mistakes that we want to kind of review here. And, you know, when we look through this, I always say that performance, for me, when you look at any policy, any performance-related policy, it's always linear. So by that, what I mean is you always start off at point A and you move your way across all the way through B, C, D, E, F, G, so on and so forth. And you'll just go through each gateway. That's the idea. When you read the policy, you know, identified there's a problem, you start off with an informal process. Problem doesn't actually correct itself. There's still a concern there. You move forward to the formal process and so on and so forth. And I think that kind of catches some managers unawares, especially if you've never managed performance of staff before. Like anybody, if you're watching this and you've managed performance previously of staff, will know it's a long process and it's not a straight line at all. If anything, I always say it's like a heartbeat. It's up and down. Performance is very subjective. You know, with sickness absence, if you're off sick, you're off freaking sick. You're sick, man. You know, it's there. It's clear as day. Whereas what I think is poor performance, the next person may actually think is satisfactory. And that's where you get that kind of competition, that conflict that happens when managers are talking to staff and starting to broach the subject of poor performance is that it's subjective. The other person may not agree with you, hence the conflict. And we want to always confrontation. So there are a couple of mistakes that we tend to make quite often when it comes to managing staff performance. And to be honest with you, I've stuck with 5. There could have been more. It is a general thing. One thing I will always say is there is never one size fits all with this. So whilst I'm mentioning 5 mistakes that generally kind of happen, that's a rule of thumb, typical 5 that I think I come up against and experience the most when we're dealing with clients. But there's, you know, people are individual, bless them. That's why I love this job so much. There isn't always just the same thing happening over and over again. There definitely is some kind of uniqueness to different things, and people don't always go the same direction. But generally speaking, you know, they do follow a certain pathway, and that's why I can kind of talk about these 5. But there will be, if you're sitting there at the moment in time and you're going through some performance-related issues with your staff, you may think that I've missed something really important. And if that's the case, by the way, drop the message below. Let's talk about it. I'm more than happy. But there are lots of different bits and pieces that surround this. It's individual. So the biggest mistake, the first one, the monumental biggest mistake that tends to happen in managing performance is doing nothing. Yeah, doing nothing is still doing something. You can't literally do nothing at all. But in essence, when it comes to performance management, you recognize, you can see that there's a pain point, there's a problem, something's not quite working out, work isn't being done, you're not meeting deadlines as a team. And you start to, you start to maybe fall in behind that and start helping to cover some of the workload. Maybe you rationalize why it's happened. They've gone through a really difficult particular event in their life right now, and they have been for a period of time, or we've had a lot of turnover of staff, or we're currently short-staffed, or currently we're overstaffed, so there's a lot more work going around, a lot less work going around. There could be lots of different things you might want to throw up around that. But the biggest problem that we always come up against when it comes to managing performance is inactive managers. In effect, by the way, an inactive manager is not the opposite to active managers. So we always say this in our training, that you have active managers, the people that confront the confrontation, take the ball by the horns and actually run with it and work with it and do what they've got to do. And then you've got the inactive managers that try to avoid the confrontation. No one likes confrontation. I think you have to be crazy to want to like confrontation. But there is no such thing as an inactive manager being the opposite to an active manager, because the opposite to an active manager is a damager. That's because that's exactly what they do. The worst case scenario about a damager, separate training in I'm going on to here, but there's the thing about a damager, and the reason it's called that is because no one really goes into it to actively do harm to the business or to their role or to their teams. They think they're doing the right thing. That's the most damaging thing. They think they're doing the right thing, but in actual fact, it's actually harming the team. It's harming the morale. It's harming the work that you've got to get done. It's harming the productivity, and it's probably harming the profitability too. So they think they're doing the wrong thing, but in virtue, they're not. Maybe that's our next one we should do next week. But in terms of things, a damager would tend to do nothing. And that's the biggest conflict we get. And the biggest problem with that, by the way, is you're keeping the problem going on. It's not actually resolving itself. No one's addressing it. Nothing is changing. The second problem you have around that is the fact that the later you start this process, you still got to start from point A. You can't skip through. So you've got to start an informal process. And what tends to happen is we tend to get people who contact us and say, hey, Mike, we've had this situation. It's been going on for 3 years. For 3 years, we've been dealing with this. We've been, altering. They've moved the person to another post. It's another actual mistake, to be fair. But we've done these different bits and pieces. We've tried this different stuff. We've put them on this training course, and we've done all these different bits and pieces. But it's still just not working out. And it's always a case of then starting to say, well, okay, what have we done? Have we actually met with the person? And we actually had an informal conversation. Okay, you've done that part. How long? So you've been in the informal stage for 3 years then, right? So you've never thought of moving on beyond that to the next stages to help manage this particular problem. You're running a business at the end of the day, not a charity. We want to be pragmatic, but we also want to be fair. So we want to be able to support people. That's a key component to managing performance that's kind of misrepresented. The whole process is always 100% underlined about supporting individuals. Doesn't feel that way for the individuals all the time, but that is the premise of what we're always looking to do. No, doing nothing means you're not supporting the person, you're not actually supporting the business, and everybody around you and that person that relies on that person to do what they're meant to be doing, well, they're not benefiting from that either, because someone's got to pick up that work somewhere, right? So do nothing is the first mistake that tends to happen quite a lot. The second one is that we don't set clear objectives. So once we identify that there's a problem, something that's not working, there's a performance issue with a member of staff, whatever the case may be, we don't ever set then what is the objective to make this better then? What are kind of the goals, what are the targets that we need to set this person to get them on the road of what good looks like? So one of the things that happens, probably yet again, another mistake. I could have added this to the list, damn it. But the other mistake is we're always saying that, if the job requirement is here and the person's level is currently here, we need to move the person up to the level of the post, not the post down to the level of the person. So this is the role. This is what we're expecting. The job description is the basic minimum of what we're expecting people to do. So we want to be able to help raise and support people to raise them up to what we're looking to do, and putting in place some clear targets and objectives along that journey. And that comes on to my last point, actually. But setting those in place is really going to help give that person some clear direction as to exactly what the problem is and how they can resolve that, how we can actually make this better. The other part is that managers tend not to meet regularly with their staff. We tend to find that in virtue, in actual fact, I would say a large majority of our performance cases, thinking off the top of my head now, I think the large majority of our performance cases tend to get to that stage and managers don't meet with their staff very regularly, if at all. And if they do, it's probably part of a wider team meeting rather than an individual one-to-one, supervisory, whatever you want to call it. And I think as soon as you start having this impact, as soon as you've recognized that perhaps there's a capability issue, perhaps there's a performance issue, as soon as you recognize that, you should 100% start thinking about, well, maybe I should start increasing the frequency of meetings. If you're not having meetings, then maybe putting some in place on its own may actually help you. And by the way, increasing the frequency of the meetings that are taking place is a form of support, because you're trying to help that person and coach them and help and support them to go through those processes with those objectives, and trying to help them to build up to the standard that you're actually expecting them to achieve as a bare minimum within that particular post. The fourth issue that we tend to come across against is lack of documenting, lack of documentation at all. So the worst case scenario is you have a performance problem with somebody, but you've got no documents about what the problem is, or shows that there actually is a problem in the first place. So, for example, I don't know, if you said somebody's, making mistakes in emails, then perhaps having some of the documentation in the emails to hand to show what those mistakes are, well, that would be handy too. Maybe it's abiding by the protocols of using machinery, and doing things in the right order or in the right time frame. Whatever the performance issue is, we need to be able to evidence what the issue is, that the issue actually exists. We need to be able to show as well that what we're doing to help and support, and that'll come on to my last point as well. But we want to be able to show what we're doing to help and support somebody. Whether it's, do they have an underlying health condition? Should we maybe consider occupational health? Even when you're doing the informal one-to-ones, having a summary email saying, following our conversation today, Fred, this is what we discussed. These are the points we agreed on. If you've got any questions or concerns with this, please let me know. Just a simple synopsis email to somebody, just documenting something of the journey that you're going through. Again, it's another common theme is that, it comes up probably because thinking about it, a large majority when these cases come up for us, like I just said, managers aren't always necessarily meeting with their staff. So why would they be documenting those meetings, right? But those two things do cross correlate. They do go hand in hand. We need to make sure that we're doing that. Again, it's just another form of support. Like I said, it's a subjective kind of subject. So if you're going in and you're telling people that there's a performance issue, it's good to be able to demonstrate what that issue actually is, and also what the impact of it is. And then the fifth point, which is quite a key one for me, is when you are starting, even from the informal stage of looking at managing performance, is developing what we would call a PIP, which is a performance improvement plan, a PIP. And that basically is a grid, and it breaks down to somebody, what is the level of performance that I'm looking for in lines with this particular post on the issues and concerns that I have. And then what is the current performance that we're receiving at the moment in time from you as an individual. Those two columns on their own identify what we'd call the performance gap, the gap between what we need and what's happening, and how we're going to help to address you to get you there is the next parts of that particular grid. So you'll be looking at, what support are you going to be putting in place? Is it further training? Is it increased supervisions? Is it, sometimes we talk about bubble systems, so maybe operating with other good performers within those areas to identify how they can increase their standards. Because when you start operating with maybe the higher level staff within your team, it helps to drag you up. It helps to drag other people up to that particular standard. Whatever the case may be, we want to clearly articulate and show what support, make a commitment to that, of what support we're going to put in place to help those people. And then the last part of that is also around timeframes. How quickly is it going to take to do this? And then regularly review that and update that and monitor that. So my dog's going to start barking in a minute because something's just come through the post. Got to love doing a live, right? So in those sense of things, we want to make sure that we are doing something, because doing nothing is the first part of this problem. Then we want to make sure that we're setting out clear objectives. That links into the final one as well. Setting out what it is we're actually looking for people to do, maybe a roadmap as to how they can improve and progress with their performance. We want to make sure that we're meeting with our staff in the first instance, and then we might want to think about shooting up the frequency of that as a method of support. We want to look at making sure that we document what we're doing, document what the issues and concerns are, and document how we're helping and supporting our staff, which again leads into the last one, which is don't forget, you've got to develop an improvement plan, a PIP, performance improvement plan, that shows what the gap is, what the support is, and the timeframes you're looking at for that person to improve their performance. Now, I said at the beginning, that's the straight line, by the way. That's working on that straight line. In terms of it doing the heartbeat process, what that means is when you start to manage performance, you might experience people who, like I said, it's subjective, get very upset about the fact that you're talking about performance. No one wants to know that perhaps maybe not they're not doing their job right to the best of its abilities. Um, Trying to make it PC there, but obviously not doing the job to the standard that's required. No one likes to hear that, right? So sometimes you'll find people that will go off sick, work-related stress. Um, you'll find that people will be upset and feel they're being bullied and harassed. You have the right to manage as a manager. That's fundamental, right? But it happens. And then grievances come in around those particular processes. And that's what I mean by darting around. You start off with performance, all of a sudden you're into sickness management, all of a sudden they come back to work, you carry on with the performance, and boom, you're into a grievance process. So it tends to fluctuate that way. It doesn't normally follow a straight line. And sometimes, not forgetting, sometimes people just leave. Sometimes they just resign when they see obviously the concerns that are taking place. So it can go into different directions. And there are a multitude, like I've just identified, as doing this live typically, right? There's at least a couple of others that you could add to that list of mistakes that managers tend to make. And I think if we can start to obviously focus on those as a manager, if you're having these problems right now, starting to make sure that you're focusing on those 5 areas will certainly help with actually progressing with that particular circumstance, that case you've got of poor performance. What's going on today? Um, what I want to do is also, like, I came on live on Monday because we've just literally gone live with another service offering, which is fantastic, and I couldn't be more excited about this. I'm seeing this one from the rooftops at the moment in time, so I'm really proud of the work that me and the team I've put into this to get this to where it is at the moment in time. And the great thing about it is it offers phenomenal value for money as it is. If we just left it as it is, it would offer phenomenal value for money. But we're not doing that. So all of our trainings, this training, everything we do goes onto this portal, and that value increases all the time, every week, every month. We're adding more content on there, which is obviously part of our HR Lite service that we're now offering, which is perfect for businesses that are in the early cycle of their business and just starting to employ people, just starting to consider, oh, crumbs, we need to give some of these people a contract. What policies do we have? The performance improvement grid. So we've just been talking about performance. Well, on there is a template of our performance improvement grid. How do we calculate annual leave? All these different bits and pieces are all on there and available at the moment in time. And I just want to absolutely promote in there for you. The link is on the screen to go on there and have a look, have a read. You can enroll. There's a 30-day money back guarantee, by the way, as well. So you can get on there. We've got tons of training that's on there. More training is going to be available. People that sign up to the HR Lite also get access to register for free to our live private training that we do for our clients as well. So on the 31st of March, we've got our training on the management triangle, which is looking at coach, leaders, and managers. And we're going to be going through that. It's a lunch and learn session. And therefore, there's not, you don't have to interact. You can eat your lunch. You can turn your camera off and take notes. I won't criticize or judge people for doing that. But you can register and come onto that for free when you come onto the HR Lite service. And equally, if you can't make it, the great thing about this particular service is it gets uploaded up to the portal and you can go through it in your own discretion, in your own time. And by the end of it, you get a certificate. And I keep saying it, but seriously, who doesn't like a certificate? I like a certificate. I'm thinking of doing the course, even though we did it, just to get a certificate. I do like my certificates, maybe a little bit too much. But that service is fantastic. And I mean, at the moment in time, we know the value of the service that we've got on there. All the items were purchased separately, individually on their own. It exceeds £20,000. So I can't remember exact numbers, but it's over £20,000 in value. And it only costs £197 per month to come on and register. So if you're watching this back, watching it live, please go and have a look. When you get on there, you can download the brochure of the service as well and get a bit more information about what's included in there. And the live that I did on Monday, I actually went into the actual platform and showed the service that's in there. And like I said, it's going to be growing. It's going to be constantly growing. So please do me a massive favor. Go on, have a look. If you've got any questions, let me know. As always, we're doing these every week. We're here every week, every Thursday to help you to get everything around your people right in your business. But I'm keen to know if there's anything that's pertinent to you, if there's anything that's really important, you've got a burning question on, you'd like to get some advice on, you'd like to get some support, or it's been happening to you right now. Maybe it's a live issue. Come and let me know. Drop us a line. Drop me a message, a comment, whatever the case may be. Come and let us know. We'll be keen to obviously let's do some more training on that. And equally, if possible, we'd be absolutely happy to do a live with you like this on a Thursday and go through that particular pain point you're experiencing live on here for other people. I get that's not for everyone. You may actually be daunted by that, so I don't want to scare you off. But let me know what is pertinent to you in your business that we could help with right now. Drop us a line, and I'll speak to you soon, guys. And girls, have a fantastic week.